What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. We continue here with my 2024 predictions for the upcoming 2024 college football season. The Maryland Terrapins are up next. Maryland coming off a pretty decent year last year, going 8-5 overall in 2023. So that's where we really expect Maryland to be, around 6, 7, 8 wins, somewhere in that range every single year. So it was a pretty solid season for them last year. My thoughts on this Maryland team for 2024. You look at the offense, I mean, obviously they're going to be very solid on that side of the football every year. They're probably not going to be the same explosive offense that we've seen, though, in the last, 3 years. Of course, Talia Tagovailoa now is gone at quarterback, so that would be a huge loss there. You know, it's really going to come down to the quarterback position. Who's going to really step up for Talia Tagovailoa in that position? I think the running backs will be pretty good, though, for Maryland, and then you look at the defense for the Terrapins. That's what I'm really concerned about for this Maryland team. They haven't been really able to get that defense going over the few years. They've been in a lot of shootouts, of course, over the years with their explosive offense. So I think this Maryland team, I do expect them to be consistent. They're right there around 6, 7, 8 wins almost every year, so that's where I expect them to be. But they do have a pretty tough schedule, so let's now get to that schedule here for 2024. This is the schedule here for Maryland. Again, they were 8-5 last year in 2023. So let's go game by game now and give you a record prediction here for the Terrapins for 2024. They start things off with UConn here at home on August 31st. Should be a pretty easy win here for Maryland. I think they should probably win this game by over 20-plus points. I know UConn had a pretty good season a couple years ago, but they had a really tough year last year, so I think Maryland starts out 1-0, and then they open up Big Ten play here in week number 2. They'll play Michigan State here at home on September 7th. Michigan State, of course, new head coach, obviously a new era down there for their program. The offense is going to really struggle here for the Spartans, but I think the defense could be pretty solid for Michigan State. I think Michigan State's going to try to run the football in this game, try to keep that explosive Maryland offense off the field for as long as possible. But I don't think it will be enough. You know, it's a very tough place to play for Michigan State for their first-year head coach. They're really not used to him just yet, so I think Maryland wins this one fairly easily. It could be a close game in the first half, but second half Maryland probably comes out pretty explosive, and they start off Big Ten play 1-0, and then they I got them starting out 2-0 with a win over Michigan State. So again, I got them starting out 2-0, and then they play on the road here at Virginia on September 14th, another Power 4 team here in a non-conference. This is a rematch from last year. Of course, this time they'll play here on the road at Virginia. Virginia is a program that seems like it's heading in the right direction. I know they were not that great last year, but this is a Virginia team that could be a little bit better this year. You look at the offense, I mean, they do have a lot of production coming back, especially on both sides of the football. So I think this might be a pretty fair matchup. I think it could be an even matchup as well. I think going into this game, Maryland might be the favorite just because they're definitely the more talented team here and definitely the more well-coached team. But, underdogs sometimes pull off upsets. I'm going to go with the upset here. I think Virginia, they're definitely a lot more better compared to last year. I think they're going to be well coached this year. They're not definitely a dark horse contender in their conference, but I think they'll pull off the upset here. I think they get the win here over Maryland. And again, I think that's going to be one of those games where I think, Maryland's going to try to, be explosive on the offensive side of the football, but Virginia's going to try to run the football in this game all over that defense of the Terrapins, and I think that's going to really help them out. So I got Virginia getting the win there and giving Maryland their first loss of the season, but then they take care of business against Villanova here on September 21st. So I got Maryland starting out 3-1, and then they go on the road to play Indiana here on September 28th. This is an Indiana team that I keep saying, a lot of times I think they're going to be really surprising a lot of people this year. What they added in the transfer portal and everything, and also their first-year head coach. I think the future is definitely bright here for Indiana. I think Indiana is also going to try to run the football like just Virginia did, and also Michigan State. I think Maryland definitely is the more talented team here, but this is kind of one of those games that I've been really back and forth on. And plus, I've already done my Indiana video from last Friday, and I did pick the Hoosiers to win this one. So I think Indiana, they run the football in this game, and I think it really comes down to the defense for the Terrapins to make up some stops. But I'm going to go with Indiana here. I think they pull off maybe an upset here. You never know. I think Indiana, they just pull off the upset here just because Maryland is definitely the more talented team. But I'm going to go with Indiana in that game to give Maryland their second loss here of the season. So that puts Maryland now at 3-2 here on the season. And then they get their first bye week here this season before playing Northwestern at home on October 12th. Pretty even matchup here. Northwestern's going to have a pretty good defense. The offense could be a little bit of a concern here for the Wildcats. Northwestern was a very big surprise team last year. I think they're going to be pretty solid once again. I think both of these teams are pretty even. They're both really decent teams and also pretty solid teams as well. But, home for the bench will be the difference. I think Maryland's kind of desperate for a, win here in the Big Ten, or I should say, for their first win in the Big Ten since that Michigan State game. I think coming out of the bye week does help them out. They regain their confidence and they grab the win here over Northwestern. It could be a low-scoring type game because Northwestern's probably going to try to run the football, and also I think their defense is good enough to hold Maryland to lesser points in this one. But I got Maryland getting the win there. I got them now at 4-2 here on the season, and then after that they'll play USC here at home on October 19th. So they got back-to-back home games here against Big Ten opponents in Northwestern and USC. USC, of course, a newcomer coming up, of course, in the Big Ten this year. This game is going to be a shootout. I mean, you got two great offensive teams here going at it. USC might be the better offense just because Lincoln Riley's been around for a very long time. Defensively, I would probably give the advantage to the Terrapins in this one. USC has not been really good in the last couple years on the defense. The Terrapins have not been really good on defense either, so I think it's really going to come down to a shootout here. A turnover probably changes the difference. Maybe both of these teams go to overtime, and we're probably in the 50-point range and everything, but home for the bench will be the difference. I'm going to go with the Terrapins here. I think a turnover probably changes the difference. I'm going to go with Maryland, though, to get the win there, and that puts their record now here at 5-2. Next, they'll play Minnesota here on the road on October 26th. A veteran Minnesota team with a good amount of production coming back on both sides of the football. I think this game's kind of similar to the Indiana and Virginia Michigan State games. Minnesota's going to really try to run the football and waste some time down on the clock and everything. And they're going to try to keep that Maryland offense off the field for as long as possible. Minnesota definitely playing at home. I'm going to go with them here in this one. So I got the Golden Gophers getting the win. Again, I think that run game of Minnesota wears down the defense for the Terrapins. So I got Minnesota giving Maryland their third loss here of the season. And then after that, they get to their second bye week here before playing Oregon here on the road going into the month of November. And they play the Ducks here on November 9th. I know the Terrapins get a bye week here before playing this game. Oregon, though, very talented. It's really going to be a really tough game here for this Maryland team, a very tough place to play as well. And Oregon just going to be really talented on both sides of the football. I don't really expect a close game here. I think Oregon wins this one fairly easily. Again, I know they get a bye week before playing that game. Maybe they have a chance to compete in the first half, but definitely not. I think the Ducks definitely are probably one of those favorites to win the Big Ten this year. So I got Maryland losing that game, and that's back-to-back road game losses here. You got back-to-back road games there with Minnesota and Oregon. I forgot to mention that, but you get a bye week in between those back-to-back road games. So I got Maryland now at 5-4, and then they play Rutgers here at home on November 16th. I think Rutgers are going to be a pretty decent team this year. This is another team that's probably going to try to run the football in this one. Rutgers, like I said, going to be really decent on the offensive side of the football. They're going to have a really good defense, though. I think the defense is really good enough to keep this Maryland team low scoring and everything, just like Northwestern's defense and everything, and also definitely like Minnesota's as well. So this will probably be a low scoring game, but I'm going to go with Maryland here just because I think it's a pretty even matchup. Again, it's kind of hard to go against Maryland when they're playing at their home place. So I got Maryland getting the win there. So that puts them into a bowl game at 6-4. And then after that, there's the big game at home against Iowa here on November 23rd. This is probably going to be one of their biggest games here at home. You got Iowa here on November 23rd, a team that's going to try to run the football as well, and they're definitely going to have a really good defense. This will probably be the toughest defense that Maryland will face, up to this point. Maybe Oregon is going to be another tough defense, but this probably could be one of the toughest defense that they face in a while. I think this is going to be a really low-scoring type game, but I think Maryland playing at home, they regain some confidence. I think they're going to come out really fired up in this one. Maybe they try to run the football a little bit more here in this game as well, but I think it's going to be a low-scoring type game, and plus, I've already done my prediction for this game. I did say it's one of those upset alert type games for the Hawkeyes at the end of the season. Iowa comes in here probably ranked in the top 15. So I think Maryland gets the upset here. I think they pull off a huge win here. They at least get a big win here on this schedule, and that's going to come against Iowa here on November 23rd. The Hawkeyes are definitely the better team. I'm going to go with Maryland here just because they're playing at home. So that puts them now here at 7-4 going into the final game here of the season. It's on the road here at Penn State on November 30th. A very tough game here to close out your season if you're a Maryland fan. It's kind of like similar to the Oregon game. I don't really expect this game to be all that close. I think Penn State's going to really run the football in this one and wear down that Terrapin defense just like Minnesota does in that game there on October 26th. I'm going to go with Penn State here. They win this one. They have a really good defense as well. So I got Maryland losing their final game here of the regular season on the road here at Penn State. So I got Maryland finishing with a record of 7-5 here for 2024. I think that's a pretty fair prediction. You got some tough road games here on this schedule. You got Minnesota, Oregon, and Penn State. These are all their toughest road games. Virginia, Indiana, though, are very winnable games. If they win those games, they can probably go maybe 9-3 if they were somehow able to do that. But Virginia, Indiana were very tough games to call. You know, those are like 50-50 games in my opinion. And then Minnesota, Oregon, and Penn State. I think Minnesota could be a very winnable game as well, but you look at Oregon and Penn State, those are definitely not very winnable games in my opinion for the Terrapins. I think those games will not be even close just because those teams are very talented and everything. So again, I got Maryland finishing 7-5 here for 2024. Let me guys know what you think about this Maryland team down in the comments below. What do you think their record will be for 2024? Again, my prediction for them is 7-5. So give me your thoughts on this team down in the comments below. Thanks for watching this video, and stay tuned here for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports channel.